past 12 months break extreme heat records. This is breakingnewsenglish.com. The world has experienced its hottest year since records began. A report from the Copernicus Climate Change Service said every month in the past 12 months broke temperature records. Every month was more than 1.5 degrees Celsius warmer than pre-industrial averages. The industrial period started in the mid-19th century. This is when we started to burn fossil fuels on a large scale. Researcher Carlo Buontempo, director of Copernicus, said the results of the report show a large and continuing shift in climate change. He warned, "We are bound to see new records being broken as the climate continues to warm. This is inevitable unless we stop putting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere and the oceans." Extreme heat has hit countries across the planet this year. Scientists say we are at the beginning of an era that will see more heat-related disasters. In the past year, Earth was 1.64 degrees C hotter than in pre-industrial times. Extreme temperatures are being seen all across California in the USA. In Death Valley, the mercury hit 53.9 degrees Celsius earlier this week. Meanwhile, Las Vegas broke its all-time heat record. The temperature there reached a scorching 48.9 degrees C. In the past year, countries have recorded extreme heat across all continents. This has caused wildfires, drought, and death. In Saudi Arabia last month, over 1,000 people collapsed and died on a pilgrimage to Mecca. Climate scientist Aditi Mukherjee said this showed Earth is in crisis. Chimpanzees use medicinal plants when sick. This is breakingnewsenglish.com. Humans have been using medicinal plants since prehistoric times. They are still used around the world in traditional medicine. For the first time, scientists have discovered that chimpanzees also seek out the fruits of the forest to heal themselves when sick. Researchers from Oxford University in the UK conducted a study of chimpanzee behaviour at the Budongo Central Forest Reserve in Uganda. The researchers tracked a male chimp with an injured hand looking for the leaves of a fern. The fern had properties that may have reduced the swelling in the ape's hand. Another chimpanzee, with a parasitic infection, sought out the bark of a cat-thorn tree. This may have helped to alleviate the animal's condition. The research team said there was a strong correlation between the chimpanzee's ailments and injuries and the healing properties in the flora they consumed. The researchers tested plant extracts that were not a normal part of a chimpanzee's diet. They found that 88% of the extracts contained antibacterial properties, while 33% of them had anti-inflammatory qualities. Researcher and anthropologist Dr. Elodie Freeman said, "Pharmacological results suggest that Budongo chimpanzees consume several species with potent medicinal properties." She said her team's investigations into the primate's behaviour may pave the way for a greater use of natural remedies in our lives.
Panama evacuates islanders due to rising sea levels. This is breakingnewsenglish.com. Rising sea levels have caused Panama to evacuate the residents of one of its islands. The inhabitants of the tiny Gardi Sugdub island off Panama's Caribbean coast are being relocated to the mainland. However, a Panamanian government official said some people are refusing to vacate their ancestral home. They will stay until the absolute last minute. Panama's government said Gardi Sugdub is a sign of things to come as more low-lying islands are under threat from being engulfed by the ocean. A recent study by Panama's Environment Ministry estimated the country would lose 2.01% of its coastal territory to rising sea levels. It added that 38,000 people will need to be relocated at a cost of about $1.2 billion. Gardi Sugdub has been home to the indigenous Guna people for generations. The overcrowded island is just 366 meters long and 137 meters wide, but was home to nearly 300 families. They relied on fishing and tourism to make a living. Islander Nadine Morales, 24, said, "We're a little sad, but the sea is sinking the island little by little." She added, "Lately, I've seen that climate change has had a major impact. The tide comes to a level it didn't before, and the heat is unbearable." Ms. Morales said she hopes her community will prosper in its new location. Her new home will be in a $12 million government development 2 kilometers from the port from which boats go to Gardi Sugdub. Thank you for listening to BreakingNewsEnglish.com. UN warns of environmental e-waste catastrophe. This is BreakingNewsEnglish.com. The United Nations has issued a stark warning to consumers worldwide. The volume of electronics we are throwing away is creating an environmental catastrophe. We are disposing of record amounts of e-waste. The UN defines electronics as anything with a plug or a battery and often contains toxic chemicals and substances such as lead and mercury. E-waste includes discarded cell phones, refrigerators, and e-cigarettes. The UN Global E-Waste Monitor has reported that in 2022, the world generated a mind-blowing 62 million tons of e-waste. CNN said this waste could fill more than 1.5 million 40-ton trucks, which, if placed bumper to bumper, could wrap around the equator. Most e-waste comes from developed countries. A lot of it is sent to poorer countries for recycling. However, these countries lack the technology and resources to dispose of it in a way that minimizes environmental damage. The sheer volume of waste is creating a plethora of health problems. Dumped electronics are poisoning rivers and seas. A disturbing 58 tons of mercury entered the environment last year. Some of this enters the food chain. The UN blamed manufacturers for showing a lack of duty of care by failing to accept responsibility for what happens to their products. It also blamed consumers, saying, "It's just a few clicks to buy electronics, but it's far more difficult to dispose of them." Thank you for listening to BreakingNewsEnglish.com. It once rained for 2 million years, say scientists. This is BreakingNewsEnglish.com. Farmers pray for rain in times of drought. Most of us have experience of wanting the heavens to open for our garden to be watered during an excessively dry spell. However, none of us can imagine a prolonged period of rain lasting 2 million years. UK geologist and forensic scientist Alastair Ruffell has discovered that 200 to 300 million years ago, before the single landmass of Pangaea separated into continents, Earth did see an era during which it rained non-stop for up to 2 million years. Dr. Ruffell said this helped forge the development of flora and fauna all over the globe. He believes the precipitation may have been sparked by a huge rise in humidity following a series of massive volcanic eruptions. Dr. Ruffell and his team based their findings on research conducted on strata of rock in the Eastern Alps in Europe in the 1970s and 80s. The data showed unusual layers deposited in ancient rock that dated back over 200 million years. Ruffell said this led to growing evidence that the wet period may have been the trigger that enabled dinosaurs, and possibly the other members of our modern land-based fauna, to diversify and dominate the land. He added, "It may have been one of the most important events in the history of life, in terms of its role in allowing not only the age of dinosaurs, but also the origins of most key classes that form the modern fauna of turtles, crocodiles, lizards, and mammals. Thank you for listening to BreakingNewsEnglish.com. Mount Everest climbers must now keep their poo. This is BreakingNewsEnglish.com. There is a new rule about going to the toilet on Mount Everest. People climbing the world's highest peak will now have to take their own poop back to base camp. There has been an increase in the number of climbers on the mountain. This has led to a problem of human waste being left on the slopes. Mingma Sherpa, a local official, told the BBC, "Our mountains have begun to stink." He added, "We are getting complaints that human stools are visible on rocks, and some climbers are falling sick. This is not acceptable. It damages our image." The new rule requires climbers to buy a biodegradable poop bag. They can dispose of the bag and its contents when they come down from the mountain. It will be checked by workers there. The problem of waste, litter, and pollution on Mount Everest has been growing for years. Many people leave camping equipment on the slopes. Thousands of discarded cans of oxygen litter the mountain. An environmental organization estimated that there was around 3 tons of human poo between base camp and the summit of Everest. Much of this freezes and does not degrade. The India Today website said the poop bags will help with the waste problem. It wrote, "It is hoped that this measure, along with ongoing cleanup campaigns, will help restore the dignity of this iconic peak." It added that the waste bags would safeguard the health of both climbers and the local environment. Thank you for listening to BreakingNewsEnglish.com.